You think my mom can't handle this? Jasmine Carter whispered, her voice steady despite the murmur of curious onlookers in the station lobby. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the polished linoleum floors that reflected the anxious shuffle of feet. Officer Thompson leaned against the counter, a smirk playing on his lips, clearly enjoying the attention he had drawn, his badge catching the light in a glint that made him seem larger than life in Jasmine's mind. She clutched her notebook tightly, the edges worn and creased from hours of study and careful planning, the pages full of reminders and lists that mapped out every possibility of the day. Around them, people glanced nervously, sensing tension without understanding its depth, whispers weaving through the air like static, building a quiet anticipation. Jasmine's heart beat rapidly, each pulse a countdown, each breath a measure of control, and she reminded herself to stay grounded, eyes scanning the room, noting exits, faces, and angles, her mind rehearsing what was to come. Thompson chuckled again, voice loud enough for the gathered crowd to hear. Special forces, huh? That's rich. The words landed with a thud in her chest, a spark igniting a simmering determination. She looked down for a moment, her fingers flexing around the notebook, then back up, eyes locking onto his, a silent declaration that she was not here to be intimidated. The echo of footsteps approached, subtle at first, measured and deliberate, a rhythm that resonated deep in the floor beneath her, vibrating through the soles of her shoes and into her awareness. She felt a shift, the air tightening, the collective energy of the room, changing as heads turned toward the entrance, curiosity rippling through the crowd. Jasmine straightened her spine, inhaled, and let her gaze sweep across the room, noting the subtle movements of people preparing to react to an unseen force. Then, a door opened, the faint metallic click amplified in the silence, and a figure appeared, commanding the frame with presence alone, posture rigid, uniform crisp, demeanor calm, but radiating authority. Her mother, Colonel Victoria Carter, moved with confidence that demanded attention without a word, each step measured, purposeful, the sound of polished boots tapping against the floor creating a cadence that drew every eye. Jasmine's shoulders relaxed slightly, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding escaping her lungs as a sense of protection settled over her. Officer Thompson's smirk faltered as he noticed the figure approaching, a realization dawning slowly, his confident facade beginning to crack. The subtle nod from Victoria toward Jasmine, barely perceptible but loaded with meaning, was enough to convey strength, assurance, and the promise of support. The lobby felt smaller, the space between people charged with unspoken tension, anticipation crackling like static electricity. Jasmine shifted her weight, feet grounded, mind focused, heart steadying, ready to step into what was coming. The first thread of victory weaving itself silently around her, a prelude to the confrontation that was about to unfold. And the air seemed to hum with the unspoken understanding that the balance of power had already begun to tip in favor of the girl who had refused to back down. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the station with a quiet tension, punctuated only by the occasional shuffle of shoes across the linoleum floor. Jasmine Carter shifted her weight slightly, the notebook still pressed to her chest, every page a small talisman of preparation, strategy, and quiet courage. Officer Thompson straightened, his confident posture faltering just enough to betray uncertainty, his eyes darting from Jasmine to the approaching figure in the doorway. The murmurs of the small crowd had grown, whispers laced with anticipation, as every gaze followed the polished boots, the crisp uniform, and the measured, unwavering steps of Colonel Victoria Carter. Jasmine felt a pulse of strength course through her, a warmth in the chest that steadied her breathing, that sharpened her focus. Her mother paused at the threshold, scanning the room with calm authority, eyes that missed nothing, posture that communicated command without words, and the air shifted, thick with expectation. Thompson blinked, caught off guard, and the previously confident smirk faded, replaced by a subtle, tight line of apprehension. Jasmine straightened further, her stance firm, shoulders squared, as if drawing from the energy radiating from her mother. The silence in the lobby became a palpable entity, tension stretching like a taut wire between the walls. Footsteps echoed in rhythm, almost ceremonial, As Victoria Carter moved closer, eyes locked on the officer with an intensity that seemed to anchor the space itself. Jasmine sensed the shift, the subtle recalibration of power, the quiet warning that this moment was hers to navigate with clarity and confidence. She felt the reactions of those around her, the instant acknowledgement that the balance had tilted, the crowd unconsciously stepping back, leaving a clear line, a stage for what was about to unfold. Every detail registered, the faint hum of the air conditioning, the reflective gleam of polished shoes, the soft flicker of fluorescent bulbs above, all contributing to a heightened awareness, sharpening senses and focus. Jasmine adjusted her grip on the notebook, the texture grounding her, the worn edges familiar and reassuring, a symbol of preparation and resilience. Victoria Carter stopped a few feet away, gaze steady, a subtle nod conveying trust and expectation, and in that shared glance, Jasmine drew a quiet, unspoken strength. Officer Thompson's uncertainty grew, the once casual dominance replaced by hesitation, a realization dawning that he was no longer the center of control, that the rules of engagement had shifted. The subtle sound of breathing, Jasmine's measured inhales and exhales, intermingled with the faint shuffle of feet from the crowd, set a rhythm, a heartbeat of suspense that pulsed through the room. Every movement, every glance, every micro-expression amplified the unspoken narrative, building anticipation and signaling the unfolding of a pivotal moment. Jasmine inhaled deeply, exhaled, and felt a surge of clarity, of readiness, knowing that the next steps, measured and deliberate, would define the direction of this encounter, that the presence and authority of her mother had already begun to shape the outcome before a single word was spoken. The tension in the station grew almost tangible, each second stretching longer than the last, the murmurs of the crowd fading into the background as if the air itself had thickened with anticipation. Jasmine Carter held her notebook tightly, its pages a reassuring weight against her chest, and she felt the quiet pulse of courage growing within her with every measured step her mother took closer. Colonel Victoria Carter moved with the precision and calm of someone trained to command attention without uttering a word, eyes scanning every detail in the room, noting the reactions, the stances, the subtle shifts of the body language around her. The lobby seemed to shrink, walls pressing in gently yet insistently, as all focus turned toward the figure that embodied authority and experience. Jasmine exhaled slowly, grounding herself, her gaze steady, taking in the rhythm of the moment, the subtle shuffling of shoes on the linoleum, the soft hum of the overhead lights, the distant echo of the city through the entrance. Officer Thompson's posture became more rigid, the confident veneer slipping as he recognized the weight of presence he had underestimated, a silent acknowledgement of the shift in dynamics. Jasmine's mother stopped a mere 10 feet away, her presence radiating a composed intensity that filled the room, every subtle gesture commanding attention, conveying a story of discipline, experience, and readiness. The murmurs of onlookers had ceased entirely, replaced by a charged silence, a collective holding of breath, the atmosphere suspended on the cusp of transformation. Jasmine drew a deep, steadying breath, feeling the invisible tether of her mother's strength anchoring her own resolve, her heartbeat syncing with the measured cadence of Victoria Carter's steps. Officer Thompson's gaze flickered between Jasmine and her mother, uncertainty creeping into his features, hesitation replacing his previous assurance, the realization dawning that the situation had altered irrevocably. The quiet click of polished boots on the floor punctuated the stillness, drawing a sharp contrast between the controlled authority of the approaching figure and the fractured composure of the officer. Jasmine shifted slightly, grounding her stance, feeling a quiet but undeniable surge of empowerment, the knowledge that she was no longer alone, that support, experience, and unwavering strength were standing by her side. The air seemed to hum with expectation, each observer sensing the unspoken narrative unfolding, tension coiling and uncoiling like a spring ready to release, awareness heightened to every detail, every movement, every expression. Jasmine's fingers flexed around the notebook, grounding her in preparation and focus, while her mother's steady gaze swept the room, sending ripples of unspoken command through the space. The subtle nod from Victoria toward Jasmine was enough to convey a profound sense of readiness, assurance, and trust, a silent signal that the next moments would be defined not by fear, but by composure, confidence, and the unyielding presence of authority. Thompson's attempts at casual dominance faltered further, the room now attuned to the subtle balance of power, the weight of experience and resolve shifting inexorably, and Jasmine felt a surge of clarity, the quiet, steadying certainty that she would face whatever came next with focus, determination, and the unspoken strength of her mother at her side. The stage set for the pivotal encounter that had begun the moment Victoria Carter had stepped into the lobby. The tension hung in the air, thick and palpable, as Jasmine Carter shifted her weight slightly, the soft scrape of her shoes against the polished linoleum echoing through the lobby. Her mother, Colonel Victoria Carter, stood a few feet ahead, posture perfectly straight, eyes sweeping over the room with the precision of someone trained to notice every detail, every shift in energy, every subtle signal of intention. Jasmine felt the pulse of determination growing inside her with every measured step her mother took, a steady rhythm grounding her, sharpening her focus. Officer Thompson's confident composure wavered, a subtle twitch in his jaw betraying the uncertainty that had begun to creep in, and Jasmine noted it silently, cataloging every micro-expression, every glance, every small movement that could provide insight into the unfolding dynamics. Around them, the onlookers were caught in a collective pause, the hum of the fluorescent lights seeming louder, as if amplifying the weight of the moment, the stillness thick enough to feel like a physical presence pressing in from all sides. Jasmine adjusted her grip on her notebook, the familiar texture reassuring, a tangible reminder of preparation, of hours spent planning, observing, and building the quiet confidence that now pulsed through her veins. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze settled on the officer, a calm intensity that made the room hold its breath, the authority radiating from her presence commanding attention without a single word. Jasmine inhaled slowly, allowing the sense of support and protection to steady her heartbeat, feeling her own confidence strengthen with each passing moment. The lobby seemed to shrink, the walls closing in gently, focused entirely on the trio at the center, every sound amplified, every movement significant, every glance charged with anticipation. Officer Thompson shifted his weight, glanced around at the observing crowd, and the realization of his miscalculation began to register, the subtle change in his posture betraying the inner recalibration of his assumptions. Jasmine's mother moved another step forward, boots clicking softly but deliberately, a measured cadence that drew every eye, projecting control, discipline, and preparedness. Jasmine mirrored the calm focus she felt radiating from her mother, shoulders back, chin lifted, gaze steady, ready to face whatever was to come. The room vibrated with unspoken energy, the tension coiling like a spring ready to release, anticipation building with each heartbeat, each micro-movement, each slight shift in posture, until the space seemed to hum with the silent promise of confrontation, resolution, and the unveiling of hidden strength. Jasmine felt her focus sharpen to a razor edge, aware of the rhythms of breath, the subtlest sounds, the faintest glances, knowing that the next moments would unfold in a way that would define the course of the encounter, and the awareness of her mother's unwavering presence anchored her, prepared her, and empowered her to meet the challenge with calm certainty and quiet determination. The balance of the lobby now irrevocably altered in their favor, the stage set for the pivotal moment that was about to arrive. The atmosphere in the lobby grew heavier, charged with anticipation as every eye followed Colonel Victoria Carter and Jasmine Carter, the quiet intensity of their presence commanding full attention. Jasmine adjusted her posture slightly, shoulders back, eyes forward, drawing strength from the measured, confident steps of her mother as she advanced through the space with the calm assurance of experience and authority. The soft, rhythmic click of polished boots against the linoleum echoed with a cadence that filled the room, marking each step as deliberate and controlled, resonating with the quiet power radiating from Victoria Carter. Jasmine felt the warmth of resolve flow through her, a steadying force that synchronized with her breathing, each inhale grounding her, each exhale releasing any remaining hesitation. Officer Thompson's earlier confidence had waned, the smirk fading into a subtle, tight expression of concern, a flicker of doubt crossing his features as he tried to reconcile the presence of the formidable figure before him. Around them, onlookers had shifted instinctively, the crowd's murmurs dissolving into a tense silence. The lobby now focused entirely on the unfolding dynamics between the officer, Jasmine, and her mother. The fluorescent lights overhead cast crisp shadows across the polished floor, reflecting the quiet, deliberate movement and creating a heightened sense of awareness, each detail of the environment accentuating the gravity of the moment. Jasmine's fingers flexed around the edges of her notebook, a tactile reminder of preparation, of thoughtfulness, of the quiet confidence she had cultivated, and she felt a surge of readiness, anchored by the steady, commanding presence beside her. Victoria Carter's eyes scanned the room with precision, taking in every angle, every subtle motion, every possible point of influence, her calm authority settling over the space like a tide, reshaping the energy, tilting the balance of control unmistakably in their favor. Jasmine felt her heartbeat align with the rhythm of her mother's steps, a silent synchronization that strengthened her focus, sharpened her awareness, and reinforced the quiet power that now enveloped her. Officer Thompson shifted subtly, weight transferring from one foot to the other, uncertainty creeping into his gestures, the previous aura of command replaced by hesitation, his awareness now fully occupied by the undeniable presence of experience, skill, and authority. The room seemed to contract and expand with each measured movement, the tension coiling like a spring, each observer caught in the gravity of anticipation, sensing the imminent shift that was about to define the encounter. Jasmine straightened completely, a quiet, unwavering determination in her eyes, ready to meet the moment fully prepared, fully aware, and fully supported, while Victoria Carter's subtle nod, almost imperceptible but loaded with intent, conveyed unspoken readiness, assurance, and strategic command. The lobby, once filled with casual chatter and the hum of activity, now existed in a suspended state, the air dense with expectation, each second stretching longer, every breath measured, every heartbeat marking the progression toward the pivotal turning point, the moment when preparation, presence, and authority would converge to reshape the dynamics entirely, setting the stage for the confrontation that had been building since the first step crossed the threshold. The subtle hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to synchronize with Jasmine Carter's heartbeat as she stepped slightly closer to her mother, the notebook still pressed against her chest like a shield of preparation and resolve. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze swept over the room once more, sharp and deliberate, noting every shift in posture, every flicker of hesitation, every micro-expression that might indicate intent or reaction. Jasmine inhaled slowly, letting the controlled rhythm of her breathing steady her nerves, and felt the invisible anchor of her mother's presence bolstering her confidence, a silent assurance that she was not alone. Officer Thompson shifted uneasily, weight transferring from one foot to the other, uncertainty creeping into his movements, his earlier air of superiority dissolving under the calm, commanding authority radiating from Victoria Carter. The observers in the lobby remained silent, their eyes glued to the unfolding scene, sensing the subtle shift in dynamics, the balance of power recalibrated in real time. Jasmine felt the energy of the space around her intensify, the tension coiling like a spring, yet within her, a quiet clarity settled, every detail of the room sharpening in focus. Each sound, each reflection, each movement registering with heightened awareness. Victoria Carter moved another measured step forward, boots tapping lightly against the polished floor, each step deliberate, each motion communicating control and precision, a presence that commanded respect and demanded attention without a single spoken word. Jasmine mirrored her mother's composure, shoulders squared, eyes forward, exuding a quiet confidence that drew strength from the unspoken connection, the shared understanding of readiness and purpose. Officer Thompson's confident facade wavered further, his eyes flicking between Jasmine and her mother, the realization of the shift in authority apparent in the subtle tightening of his jaw and the slight narrowing of his gaze. The fluorescent lights above cast crisp shadows across the room, highlighting the measured movements and deliberate positioning of the two women at the center of the lobby, every detail amplified, every angle accentuating the silent power struggle unfolding. Jasmine felt a deepening sense of control, her fingers flexing around the edges of her notebook, a tactile reminder of planning, foresight, and preparedness, reinforcing the steadying influence of her mother's presence. The silence in the room became almost tangible, charged with anticipation, the faint hum of the air conditioning and distant city sounds fading into the background as focus centered entirely on the subtle, purposeful actions of the women. Victoria Carter's gaze met Jasmine's, a nearly imperceptible nod communicating readiness, trust, and the unspoken command that the moment had arrived for measured confrontation. Every observer sensed the gravity of the scene, tension rippling through the room like a current, awareness sharpened, anticipation mounting, as the next actions would define the encounter. Jasmine inhaled deeply once more, grounding herself in the certainty of preparation and support, the quiet, formidable presence of her mother reinforcing her own confidence, and the lobby seemed to hold its collective breath, every micro-movement, every glance, every heartbeat aligning toward the pivotal moment that was about to unfold, a moment charged with silent authority, clarity, and poised determination that would set the stage for the resolution yet to come. The air in the lobby seemed to hold its breath, every small sound magnified, from the soft shuffle of shoes on the linoleum to the distant hum of the air conditioning vents, creating a rhythm that pulsed through Jasmine Carter's awareness. She stood still, the notebook pressed against her chest, feeling the subtle energy of her mother, Colonel Victoria Carter, radiating calm and unshakable authority beside her, an invisible shield that steadied Jasmine's nerves and sharpened her focus. Each observer in the lobby was caught in the gravity of the moment, eyes fixed, breaths held, the tension thick enough to taste, the collective anticipation weaving a fragile web around the central figures. Jasmine inhaled slowly, grounding herself, feeling the quiet power of preparation and presence, her heartbeat syncing with the measured cadence of Victoria Carter's steps. Officer Thompson shifted, weight transferring slightly from one foot to the other, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face, the confident mask of authority faltering under the unspoken weight of experience and command. The lighting cast sharp reflections on the polished floor, highlighting every careful movement, every small gesture, amplifying the sense of importance and gravity in the space. Jasmine adjusted her stance, shoulders back, feet planted firmly, ready to step forward, her awareness tuned to the rhythm of the room, every glance, every breath, every subtle shift registered with heightened perception. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze scanned the room, catching micro-movements, evaluating posture, noting the angle of each body and the placement of each foot, her presence commanding attention without a word, authority radiating through the space like a steady tide, reshaping the energy around them. Jasmine felt her own confidence swell, a quiet courage rooted in preparation and trust, mirrored in her mother's calm, deliberate demeanor. Each step Victoria took reinforcing Jasmine's poise and composure. The tension coiled like a spring, ready to release, each second stretching longer, anticipation building silently, the lobby itself seeming to contract and focus on the pivotal moment unfolding at its center. Officer Thompson's eyes flicked between Jasmine and her mother, the realization of the shift in control evident in the subtle tightening of his jaw and the cautious way he measured each movement. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the faint scrape of shoes, the nearly imperceptible shifting of bodies, all formed a backdrop of suspense, enhancing the sense of inevitable resolution, the silent promise of change, and Jasmine drew a long, steadying breath, feeling herself anchored in the strength of her mother, the shared focus, and the clarity of purpose that now defined the space, preparing for the pivotal action that would define the balance of the encounter and leave its mark on everyone present, the quiet authority and measured presence setting the stage for the final turning point. The lobby held a charged stillness, every observer frozen in the moment as Colonel Victoria Carter closed the final steps toward Jasmine, her presence undeniable, commanding, and precise, radiating a quiet intensity that seemed to pull the attention of the entire room. Jasmine felt the subtle ripple of confidence surge through her as she mirrored her mother's composed posture, shoulders back, spine straight, eyes forward, the notebook in her hands grounding her, every page a reminder of preparation, thought, and readiness. Officer Thompson's earlier bravado had dissolved completely, replaced by a cautious, measured awareness of the shifting balance, the subtle tension in his posture betraying the realization that control had quietly, irreversibly shifted away from him. The fluorescent lights cast long reflections on the polished floor, accentuating every micro-movement, every calculated step, the room itself seemingly aware of the silent power exchange taking place at its center. Jasmine's gaze swept the crowd briefly, noting the collective breath held in anticipation, the slight shifts of weight, the quiet hum of unspoken curiosity, the way every pair of eyes seemed to follow the precise cadence of Victoria Carter's measured advance. Each step Victoria took was deliberate, controlled, and perfectly timed, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with Jasmine's own heartbeat, steadying her nerves, focusing her attention on the clarity of the moment, and reinforcing the sense of calm determination that now defined their presence. Officer Thompson's eyes flicked rapidly between Jasmine and her mother, the earlier confidence in his stance replaced by a subtle tightening of muscles, a slight narrowing of his gaze, an almost imperceptible hesitation that spoke volumes to anyone attuned to it. Jasmine inhaled, slow and deliberate, letting the controlled rhythm of her breathing anchor her focus, each exhale releasing any lingering tension as the weight of preparation and support from her mother reinforced her readiness. The soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant city sounds outside became background noise, fading against the heightened awareness of the charged space, the lobby vibrating with the anticipation of the unseen yet inevitable confrontation. Jasmine felt the strength of resolve building quietly, silently, with every measured step, every slight glance, every shared moment of unspoken communication with her mother, a bond that radiated confidence and purpose. The polished floor reflected the subtle nuances of their movement, amplifying the deliberate precision of each action, and every observer instinctively noted the shift in energy, the gravity of authority now present, the quiet assurance of experience and skill. Jasmine shifted slightly, feeling the grounding weight of the notebook, the reassurance of preparation, and the unspoken promise of guidance from Victoria Carter, the energy around her coalescing into clarity and focus. The atmosphere seemed to hum with potential, every second stretching, every breath measured, the room poised on the cusp of the pivotal turning point, as Jasmine felt a quiet, unwavering certainty that the next moments would unfold under control, shaped by the measured presence, authority, and strategic intent of her mother. The air charged, the lobby suspended, and the stage set for the critical resolution that had been building since the first deliberate step crossed the threshold. The subtle tension in the lobby seemed to coalesce into a tangible force as Jasmine Carter and Colonel Victoria Carter stood side by side, the quiet authority emanating from her mother filling every inch of the space. Jasmine felt the rhythm of her own heartbeat align with the deliberate cadence of her mother's measured steps, each one reinforcing her resolve and sharpening her awareness. The polished linoleum beneath their feet reflected the movement with crisp precision, every flicker of light capturing the nuanced interplay of presence and control. Officer Thompson shifted his weight uneasily, a subtle tightening around his shoulders, a minute but telling sign that the balance of power had decisively shifted. Observers leaned slightly forward, the collective inhalation of breath almost audible, as the gravity of the moment took hold, every eye drawn to the deliberate and composed movements of the two women at the center of the room. Jasmine adjusted the grip on her notebook, the tactile familiarity grounding her, a physical connection to the preparation and foresight that had brought her to this point. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze swept methodically over the room, noting subtle micro-movements, the placement of hands, the angle of heads, the smallest cues that spoke volumes without a single word being uttered. Jasmine mirrored that focus, shoulders squared, feet planted firmly, eyes forward, absorbing the silent energy, drawing strength and clarity from the shared awareness. The faint hum of fluorescent lights and distant city sounds receded into the background as attention coalesced around the central figures, the lobby itself seeming to hold its breath, waiting. Officer Thompson's previously confident expressions had narrowed into cautious calculation, eyes darting, mind assessing the recalibrated dynamics, the weight of authority now unmistakably on the side of the two women. Each subtle shift, every controlled motion, amplified the perception of quiet power, signaling to all present that the situation had irrevocably changed. Jasmine felt a surge of clarity and control, an internal alignment with the deliberate, steady energy radiating from her mother, reinforcing her ability to maintain poise, composure, and presence. The room, the crowd, the lighting, every detail heightened the gravity of the unfolding moment, the air thick with anticipation as the next sequence of events approached, each participant acutely aware that the equilibrium had shifted, and that Jasmine, anchored by preparation and the unwavering presence of Colonel Victoria Carter, was now positioned at the center of influence, ready to navigate the pivotal turning point that would define the remainder of this encounter. The suspense taut, the focus absolute, the stage perfectly set for the climactic unfolding. The lobby felt suspended in time, every subtle movement magnified, every breath measured, as Jasmine Carter stood rooted to the spot, notebook still pressed against her chest, eyes forward, absorbing the full force of the moment. Colonel Victoria Carter moved with deliberate precision, each step calculated, her posture radiating calm authority, the air around her charged with silent command. Jasmine felt her own confidence swell, a quiet certainty that matched the measured energy of her mother, grounding her in the awareness of preparation and control. Officer Thompson shifted slightly, the weight of the room pressing in as he registered the unspoken power and strategic composure emanating from the pair, his smirk replaced by a wary, calculating expression. The polished linoleum reflected each subtle movement, the light from the fluorescent fixtures casting shadows that stretched and shifted with the contours of their deliberate motions, amplifying the intensity in the room. Observers remained still, captivated by the quiet choreography of presence and awareness, the lobby itself seeming to pulse with anticipation, every detail heightened, every sound amplified against the near silence. Jasmine inhaled slowly, drawing strength from the measured, steady energy around her, letting it synchronize with her heartbeat, focus sharpening with every moment that passed. Colonel Victoria Carter paused briefly, scanning the room with unerring precision, noting the micro-expressions, the slight shifts in stance, the minutiae that could indicate intent, her eyes conveying a quiet assurance and readiness that extended invisibly to Jasmine. The tension coiled, a spring drawn tight. As Jasmine shifted her weight slightly, the tactile reassurance of the notebook in her hands reminding her of planning, foresight, and calm assessment, each detail reinforcing a sense of preparedness and focus. Officer Thompson's posture betrayed subtle hesitation, the earlier confidence now replaced by a careful calculation, awareness of the irrevocable shift in the balance of authority evident in the tightening of his jaw and the narrowing of his gaze. The fluorescent lights above threw crisp reflections across the polished floor, accentuating every deliberate motion, every micro-gesture, every controlled glance, highlighting the interplay of control, observation, and anticipation. Jasmine drew a long, steadying breath, aligning her internal focus with the quiet, formidable presence of her mother, reinforcing her composure, confidence, and clarity of purpose. The lobby itself seemed to hum with expectation, the collective awareness of observers focused on the interplay of measured authority and deliberate calm, every second stretching longer, every heartbeat amplified, as the subtle, poised energy of Victoria Carter and Jasmine Carter combined to shape the dynamics of the space. Each moment built toward the pivotal resolution, the atmosphere thick with anticipation, and Jasmine, steady and anchored, felt the unspoken force of guidance and support, the strategic preparation that had brought her here, reinforcing the quiet command that the next sequence of events would unfold exactly according to their focus and intent, every movement deliberate, every glance meaningful, the stage set for the decisive moment about to arrive. The lobby remained silent, each observer tense, every eye fixed on Jasmine Carter and Colonel Victoria Carter as the measured rhythm of their movements continued to dominate the space. Jasmine's heartbeat had settled into a calm, deliberate pace, each inhale and exhale syncing with the subtle cadence of her mother's presence, grounding her in confidence and focus. The polished linoleum reflected the precise motion of boots and shoes, shadows stretching long and crisp under the overhead fluorescent lights, enhancing the intensity of the unfolding moment. Officer Thompson shifted slightly, the careful calculation in his posture betraying the acknowledgement that the situation had changed irrevocably, the once casual air of authority now replaced by caution and measured restraint. Jasmine adjusted the grip on her notebook, the tactile reassurance of its familiar pages reinforcing her composure, reminding her of preparation, strategy, and the quiet power that comes from readiness. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze swept deliberately over the lobby, catching every subtle gesture, every angle, every movement of the surrounding crowd, her presence commanding attention without a single word spoken, her quiet authority shaping the atmosphere, tilting the energy of the room toward focus, control, and disciplined calm. Jasmine felt the steadying influence, the silent guidance that bolstered her awareness and clarity, aligning her focus with the strategic presence of her mother, the combination creating a controlled force that radiated through the space. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation, each breath, each subtle shift, each faint movement of the onlookers magnified in significance, the lobby vibrating with quiet expectation as the dynamics crystallized into a tense yet ordered energy. Officer Thompson's eyes darted between Jasmine and Victoria, the flicker of uncertainty evident, a cautious reevaluation of the previously assumed dominance, the subtle twitch of muscles signaling an internal acknowledgement of the shifting balance. The fluorescent lights highlighted each controlled motion, every minor adjustment in stance, every nuanced expression, drawing attention to the precise interplay of authority and poise that defined the central figures. Jasmine inhaled slowly, exhaling deliberately, feeling the quiet confidence growing, anchored in preparation, awareness, and the shared understanding with her mother, every detail, every sound, every shadow reinforcing her focus and readiness. The lobby seemed to pulse gently, time stretching in measured increments, each second building anticipation, each movement charged with significance, the space between participants imbued with the weight of authority, observation, and deliberate composure. Jasmine's gaze swept briefly across the assembled observers, noting the collective intake of breath, the subtle shifts in attention, and the quiet recognition that the balance had irrevocably shifted, that preparation, clarity, and the presence of seasoned authority had firmly redefined the situation. Colonel Victoria Carter's subtle nod, imperceptible to most, conveyed trust, readiness, and the shared understanding that the unfolding events were now under control, that the moment had arrived for the next sequence of measured actions to determine the outcome, and Jasmine felt the grounding certainty of being supported, aligned, and prepared to meet what came next with unwavering focus, poised determination, and the quiet assurance of strategic command enveloping her completely. The lobby seemed to hold a collective breath as Jasmine Carter and Colonel Victoria Carter stood poised at the center, every movement deliberate, every detail charged with significance. Jasmine felt the subtle shift of energy, the quiet confidence radiating from her mother, reinforcing her own sense of focus, her posture straightening, shoulders squared, eyes forward, ready to meet whatever came next with calm assurance. The polished floor reflected their precise movements, amplifying the sense of controlled authority, each shadow cast under the fluorescent lights highlighting the careful interplay of presence and awareness. Officer Thompson's previous composure had fully eroded, replaced by measured hesitation, the faint twitch of a hand, the slight tightening of the jaw signaling recognition that he was no longer the center of control, that the balance had shifted decisively. Observers remained still, captivated, some holding their breath, others leaning slightly forward, the tension palpable, every subtle sound magnified, from the soft scrape of shoes to the faint hum of the ventilation system. Jasmine adjusted her grip on the notebook, the familiar texture grounding her, a tangible link to preparation, strategy, and the quiet power she had cultivated through careful thought. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze swept the room with methodical precision, noting every micro-movement, every shift in posture, the placement of feet, hands, and angles of heads, the silent language of the body speaking volumes without a word uttered. Jasmine mirrored the steady focus, absorbing the subtle cues, drawing strength and clarity from the shared understanding, the unspoken bond of readiness and purpose that connected them. The lobby seemed to contract and expand with the collective energy, charged with anticipation, every second drawn out, the environment itself reflecting the gravity of the unfolding moment. Officer Thompson's eyes flicked repeatedly between Jasmine and her mother, the uncertainty deepening, his movements slower, more calculated, his awareness entirely occupied by the presence of experience, calm authority, and strategic readiness. The fluorescent lights above cast precise reflections, emphasizing each deliberate step, each controlled gesture, each subtle glance, enhancing the intensity and significance of every action. Jasmine felt a deepening sense of resolve, an internal clarity that allowed her to remain poised, composed, and attentive, each microsecond heightening her awareness of the unfolding dynamics. The subtle hum of the environment, the distant city sounds, and the quiet shifting of observers merged into a background rhythm that heightened the suspense, anchoring Jasmine in the present while reinforcing the deliberate energy flowing from her mother. Colonel Victoria Carter's subtle nod toward Jasmine conveyed trust, preparedness, and assurance, the quiet communication amplifying Jasmine's confidence, signaling that the moment was fully contained, under control, and poised for the next unfolding sequence. Every detail, every breath, every glance contributed to the charged atmosphere, the lobby now suspended in a focused, attentive state, the anticipation building toward the critical turning point, the space vibrating with quiet authority, calm determination, and the poised readiness of two figures fully aligned in presence, focus, and intention, ready to meet the culmination of the moment with absolute control. The moment hung in perfect stillness, every observer in the lobby captivated, the tension stretching yet somehow suspended, as Jasmine Carter and Colonel Victoria Carter occupied the center of the space with quiet, unshakable authority. Jasmine's breath was steady, each inhale and exhale measured, each beat of her heart syncing with the controlled rhythm of her mother's presence, grounding her, sharpening her focus, and reinforcing a sense of calm preparedness. The polished linoleum beneath their feet reflected every subtle motion, every deliberate step, every nuance of posture and gesture, enhancing the perception of precision, control, and deliberate intent. Officer Thompson's confident stance had long dissolved, replaced by a careful, measured consideration, every slight shift of weight, every micro-expression signaling recognition of the shift in power and the quiet command of experience and authority now governing the space. Observers remained suspended, their collective attention fixed, the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above blending with the distant city sounds, creating an almost cinematic tension that stretched every second into a poised, meaningful interval. Jasmine's fingers flexed around her notebook, the tactile familiarity serving as a grounding point, reinforcing the awareness that preparation, knowledge, and quiet determination could influence the outcome as much as presence and authority. Colonel Victoria Carter's gaze swept the room with methodical precision, catching every minor detail, every subtle gesture, every angle of observation, her posture and composure radiating an invisible influence that shaped the dynamics, tilting the balance irrevocably. Jasmine absorbed the unspoken guidance, mirrored the measured focus, and felt an unmistakable clarity, a quiet strength that solidified her poise, her awareness, and her readiness to act with discernment and composure. The atmosphere vibrated with anticipation, tension coiling like a spring, every breath, every glance, every subtle shift magnified in meaning, signaling the near arrival of the pivotal turning point. Officer Thompson's gaze flickered repeatedly, a sign of internal calculation, the realization of the irrevocable shift in authority evident in the faintest tightening of facial muscles and the slight hesitation of movement. The light from the fluorescent fixtures accentuated the precision of each step and posture, shadows stretching to frame the moment in visual gravity, every reflection amplifying the silent dialogue of presence and command. Jasmine drew a long, deliberate breath, aligning her focus with the steady, deliberate energy radiating from her mother, a shared rhythm that infused her with calm certainty, reinforcing awareness, composure, and readiness. The lobby seemed to pulse in sync with the unfolding energy, the space itself attuned to the balance of authority, observation, and deliberate intent, each second laden with unspoken significance. The subtle nod from Colonel Victoria Carter toward Jasmine carried weight, conveying trust, readiness, and strategic assurance, a silent affirmation that the culmination of preparation, focus, and presence had arrived, that the stage was set for resolution, and that every observer, every participant, and every subtle detail now converged toward a quiet, commanding conclusion, the atmosphere heavy with poised expectation, awareness sharpened to an almost palpable degree, and the room, collectively holding its breath as the final, critical moment approached, defined by clarity, composure, and the quiet, commanding influence of experience standing unwaveringly beside measured determination.